Hymn number 508. 508. Let's sing.
Oh, wonderful Savior is Jesus, my Lord, how wonderful Savior to me. He hideth my soul in the cleft of the rock, where rivers of pleasure I see. He hideth my soul in the cleft of the rock, that shadows of my thirsty land. He hideth my life in the depths of his love, and covers me there with his hand, and covers me there with his hand. A wonderful Savior is Jesus, my Lord, he taketh my burden away. He holds me up and I shall not be moved. He gives me strength as my day. He hides my soul in the cleft of the rock, that shadows of dry thirsty land. He hides my life in the depths of his love, and covers me there with his hand, and covers me there with his hand. With numberless blessings each morning he crowns, and filled with his fullness divine. I sing in my breath, oh, glory to God, for such a great as mine. He hideth my soul in the cleft of the rock, that shadows of dry thirsty land. He hideth my life in the depths of his love, and covers me there with his hand, and covers me there with his hand. When clothed in his brightness transported I rise to meet him in clouds of the sky. His perfect salvation, his wonderful love, I'll shout with the millions on high. He hideth my soul in the cleft of the rock, that shadows of dry thirsty land. He hideth my life in the depths of his love, and covers me there with his hand, and covers me there with his hand.
Number 470. 470. Let's sing.
I heard an old story, how a Savior came from glory, how he gave his life on Calvary to save a wretch like me. I heard about his groaning, of his precious blood's atoning. Then I repented of my sins and won the victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved the air I live in, and all love is to him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. I heard about his healing, how to his power revealing, how he made the lame to walk again, and caused the blind to see. to victory beneath the cleansing flood. I heard about a mansion He has built for me in glory, and I heard about the street of gold beyond crystal sea, about the angels singing and your redemption story, and some sweet day I'll sing up there the song of victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with His redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew Him, and all love is due Him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood.
Song after lesson will be hymn number 904. 904.
I miss you so much.
So after a week, Job decides to speak. It's interesting. In chapter 2, when his wife speaks to him, he tells her, when she says about cursing God and die, he says, shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. There's a question of how close did Job come in the followings. There are some issues there that we have to determine. It says this here, and I honestly believe that God is talking about in the time frame of him losing his family, of initially getting those boils, Job did not sin. And notice it said sin with his lips. He did not curse God. And that's important to remember as we go through the points. We're going to look at chapter 3 this morning. Trying to keep these conversations. This is probably the longest conversation that's recorded in the Bible. Somebody once told me that they're the only person there's more written about their life than Jesus was Joseph. And over the whole span of his life, that's true. But I think Job's conversation is probably a lot more about Job than there is about Joseph. There's 38 chapters, 35 of them which have to do with Job and his three friends' conversation before God gets involved. And you kind of have to sift through it. And I want us to think about this. When Job speaks initially, Is Job asking for advice?
You just talking at large.
He's talking at large. He's not really looking for advice. And sometimes when we have problems, and I think that's the thing that God wants us to get across, it's better when you don't know what to say, not to say anything at all. And sometimes when people are in this kind of mode, it's better just to be quiet and listen. And that is the thing that we should think about. Because I want you to notice the first part of Job, it tells in verse 1 that Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. Let me make this clear. Job, nowhere in the book is Job suicidal. Okay? There is a big difference between wishing you'd never been born, wishing you could die, and thinking about taking your own life. We have to keep that in mind. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job spoke and said, may the day perish on which I was born, and the night in which it was said, a male child is conceived. What's he wanting? Take it off the calendar. Forget about this day. May that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor the light shine upon it. What is he really thinking? That day, Job says the worst day of my life was the day I was born. Because if I'd have never been born, I wouldn't be going through this. No, may darkness and the shadow of death claim it. May a cloud settle on it. May the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night, may darkness seize it. May it not rejoice among the days of the year. May it not come into the number of the months. You got a day you want to forget about? That's what Job is saying. I don't just want me to forget about it. I want the world to forget about it. I want God to forget about it. Oh, may that night be barren. May no joyful shout come into it. May those curse it who curse the day, those who are ready to rouse Leviathan. May the stars of its morning be dark. May it look for night, but have none, and not see the dawning of the day, because it did not shut up the doors of my mother wombs, nor hide sorrow from my eyes. So some things come there. What's a Leviathan?
Sea serpent.
Some kind of giant sea serpent. And what the terminology that we find, looking it up, most agree some kind of giant sea serpent. And the idea behind it, and I looked this up on I looked it up on 3 different websites, because one said it was a crocodile type thing. Another said it was a hippopotamus. Okay? I've seen that footnotes in Bibles. From its description of in the scriptures and everything, it was probably some type of sea creature that had a very tough armor skin to it. And those that would arouse it and attack it and try to kill it would often become its prey, from what we know from ancient writings. So, here's the point. Let those who are ready to arouse the Leviathan, he says, let them curse the day, because if they go in a fight with that, they probably going to be cursing that day. So let them curse that day the day of my birth while they're at it. And he's saying, not only do I want darkness, but I want complete darkness. I don't even want the stars to shine. Don't let it even see the dawning of the day. You ever been in pitch black? You get in the woods sometimes, if they're thick enough, you can't even find the stars. You're lucky if you don't walk into a tree. But eventually, if you can get some opening, see through the tops of stars, if there's no clouds, you'll see stars. You'll have some light. Job says, I don't even want that. I want this day to be completely dark. Why? Because it did not shut up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide sorrows from my eyes. What's he saying? It would be better for me if I'd never been born. He is. He's grieving. He's grieving. How many of us look back and say, if there was something in our life I could change, this is what I'd do? Go back and change it. Job's thought is, it doesn't matter what I could change my life. If I live, I'm going to get to this day. I just need to be better off. And he's not wishing at this point for anything other than that he had died at birth. He's not asking that he'd never been born. That's the other thing. He's actually saying, I wish I'd have died at birth. And it gives some insight on Job's thought about dying in the womb or at birth. Notice he said, why did I not die at birth? Why did I not perish when I came from the womb? Why did the knees receive me, or why the breast that I should nurse? His kind of point is, if this is all I had to look forward to, and he's really kind of asking this of God, why didn't you just let me die? What good was life? Notice what he said, for now I would have lain still and been quiet. I would have been asleep. Think about this. What did Job realize that these abortionists don't? What did Job realize about death that many people today don't? It's not a cease of existence. He says, I'd have been asleep. Then I would have been at rest. I think that's important because when did Job live? What time frame do we best put Job as living? Patriarchal. Most agree he was a contemporary of Abraham's. Around the same time, about 400 years after the flood. How much of the Bible did Job have? None of it.
He might have had some.
He had only what God told him. He didn't have any written word.
He had something to look to God.
He had something to look to God. But, I mean, as far as the Bible we have today, Moses was the first one to write the 5 books that we have, Pentateuch. But guess what's older than the Pentateuch? Job. The book of Job is actually the oldest book of the Bible. And it's not just found in the Bible, it's just not in the Hebrew language. It's been found in various languages, including Aramaic. Job was a recognized book. Isn't that interesting? God was giving man written, and this is the one he chose to write first for the written word. Tell us something about life.
Take us back to a time we don't have much recorded history.
We don't. But the interesting point is, Job realized something that most people don't. Job realized he had an eternal soul.
We understand, put that in Adam and Eve walked with God in the garden. From there, we don't know how that relationship looked, as far as man coming to know God's will and desire.
We don't. And we know he's, as a Hebrew writer, he spoke in times past to the fathers. We know that, and this is that point that we're making is we don't have written down what exactly God told them. We don't have written down what Cain and Abel's sacrifice was supposed to be, or how it was supposed to be done, what the problem was with Cain's. But we know he gave him a sacrifice, or he told him what to do in order for them to be well pleasing. Here, obviously, somewhere he has taught mankind that they have an eternal soul long before it comes into writing. Then I would have been at rest with kings and the counselors of the earth who built ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold who filled their houses with silver. Where would I be? I'd be in the grave. Would I be alone? No. I'm going to be with the other people that have died. That's that point of understanding. Then, or why was I not hidden like a stillborn child, like infants who never saw light? Think about that point. We don't see too much of that today in our age of children being born who are not alive, already dead in the womb, but it still happens on occasion. Other times it happened even more. And that's what Job says, why didn't I just die in the womb? There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. What wickedness happens in the grave? None. You ever realize that there are no disobedient dead people? Peter makes a statement when Jesus in the grove, he went and preached to the spirits who were formerly disobedient. Ain't disobedient in the grave is like atheists. There's not any in the grave. There's no disobedience. They're wishing they could correct it, and it's too late. And that's what Job says here. The wicked cease from troubling. The wicked that died, they can't trouble people anymore. And there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners rest together. They do not hear the voice of the oppressor. The small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Verses 11 and 19 is all about being in the grave.
And he had some grasp of that situation.
He's got a serious grasp, and that's my point for somebody who didn't have the written word, didn't have Jesus talking about Abraham, Lazarus, and the rich man. He knew from somewhere, and it had to come from, it's accurate, so it had to come somewhere from God. God gave him that information at some point, somehow, somewhere. And that is the point of it. And Job is at a point that I would have been better if I was in the grave from the beginning, never had to experience any of this. And you know what? I want you to understand something. If death came upon Job, would it put him at rest in his mind? At this point, Job's not asking to die. He's saying, I wish I'd never been born. He says, I wish I'd never had to go through this. In fact, what he said in one aspect of it, if I die now, it's too late because I've already experienced everything. Job is miserable. If we were living in Job's time, we'd probably tell him he's depressed. And guess what? He is. He's depressed. He's miserable. And he's grasping for answers. Notice he's not saying, I wish. He says, why didn't I? His thought is, it would have been better for me. And that brings us to verse 20. Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter of soul? What's the purpose? Who long for death, but it does not come, and search for it more than hidden treasures. Who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find the grave. You ever see somebody happy that they're going to die? I've known some people that were right with the Lord and looking forward to going home. And if death had came, they would welcome it. But I've known some people who still were right with the Lord, but saw death as an end to their misery. You ever read what Moses writes? The only psalm that Moses writes. We read it 70. The years of a man is 70 years. If by chance he lives to 80, life is full of misery. Poor Moses wrote that when he, at some point, even if he was 80, he lived to be 120. So in his mindset, he had 50 years of misery. If we really thought about it, if we went back and looked and paid attention from that time he started getting those children of Israel, we could understand that. He was about 40 when he left Egypt, so I guess he had about 40 decent years before he had to put up with all them screaming children. I heard somebody say one time that Moses had the biggest daycare in the world. Jacob made that statement to Pharaoh. The years of my misery. Year of my misery. Actually, he says the years of my trouble have been 139 years. Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden and whom God has hedged in? This is the first time Job blames God. He's not really blaming, but he says, God has brought this upon me. God has hedged me in. What does it mean to be hedged in? Got nowhere to turn. Got nowhere to go. I'm trapped. And my way is hidden. I don't know how to find a way out. Notice, for my sign comes before I eat, and my groanings pour out like water. What's significant about a sign before he eats? Not after he eats. Boo Ball's funny. She'll be eating something, she'll get done, and she'll say she enjoyed it. Job says, I dread eating. I dread eating. And I just groan like sweat. For the thing I greatly feared has come upon me, and what I dreaded has happened to me. How much did Job care about his family and his health? Notice, the thing I greatly feared, losing everything, including my health. That was my great fear. Feeling alone, feeling without God. Job actually kind of feels like he's without God. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, for trouble comes. Ever been in a situation where no matter how hard you wanted to sleep, you couldn't sleep? Been in so much distress you didn't know where to turn, what to do? How about the thing that you dread the most becoming a reality? That's one of the hardest things there is to swallow. They said, I read back when I was a teenager that after Elvis died, that his greatest fear was being broke, losing everything, going back to what he was before he became famous. So much so that when his wife wrote her book, and this was confirmed by some of the people that lived there in the mansion with him, that he would wake up screaming because he had a nightmare that he lost everything. Is it any wonder that God tells us in Hebrews to be content with such things as we have? Verse 13 and 5. Be content and understand that it can be gone in an instant. But what will never be gone? Says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. How important is it to be able to have a strong faith in times like these? That's what Job, the book of Job, is about. Holding on to your faith. Struggles are going to come. How we handle them. We hold on to our faith. And next week, we're going to start reading from one of Job's judgmental friends. I think that's the best way to put it. I don't get against people making judgments, but they figure, and that's the way it starts out, Eliphaz, the Temanite, Job, you must have sinned. Let me ask you a question. From everything we read, did Job declare that he had not sinned? He didn't even declare that.
Just complaining.
Right, Matt. Yeah, and he's really not complaining. He's just saying, I wish I was dead. I wish I'd never been born, and I wish I could die. Just put it, if my life's going to be this miserable, just let me die. And the only thing he came close to blaming God for was, God's got me hedged in. I'm trapped. I was born, I can't change anything about it, though I wish I could. I wish I could die, but I'm not going to take my own life.
In a way, we see a lot of paradoxes in his life.
And that's something we should understand, because how many paradoxes hit our lives? You ever think about the serenity prayer? Do you know what the serenity prayer is? It's a very simple prayer and a very wild prayer. It says, Lord, help me change the things I can change. Help me to accept the things I cannot change. And give me the wisdom to know the difference. Job has that he understands. There is nothing he can do to change his situation right now. And that's the hardest thing to understand. It's the hardest thing for us to accept. Is the things that we cannot change. And we have to deal with them all the time. How many of us, being the Christians we are, wish we could get more people to be faithful to the Lord? How many people can we actually change that are unwilling to change? None of them. None of them. And that's hard to accept sometimes, because we care about people and we wish we could do something that would cause them to want to change. And guess what? When the Lord gave them free will, he even gave up that ability to force them. He will show them whatever he can, everything that he can, try and plead and beg, and maybe even make life troublesome. But in the end, it all comes back that it's up to them. Job understands, in this point, nothing is up to me. It's a shame his friends weren't actually listening to him. That's the hard part. They really weren't listening to what he said. They had all, especially this Eliphaz, he has already made up his mind where the problem lies, and the problem in his mind is with Job. When we start on that next week, that'll be chapters 4 and 5. But come back. What's your invitation song?
Have you been to Jesus?
That's an interesting thing. Have you been to Jesus? People that understand about the grave understand the need for salvation. Did Job understand that need? Yeah, we could read it in chapter 1. Because whenever his sons and daughters got together, he always made sure that he got them afterwards and made sacrifices for them. He wanted to make sure they were right with God. We read about death. He understands about death. the need for salvation. If we could just get that message across to most of the world, it would probably be a lot better. That's one of the hard things to do. And there is only one place we can find that salvation, and that is in Jesus. Let's stand and sing.
Have you been to Jesus for the cleansing power? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His grace in His hour? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are your garments clean by the Savior's side? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Do you rest each moment in the crucified? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? When through cometh, will your robes be white and white in the blood of the Lamb? Are your souls be ready for the mansions bright, and be washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Lay aside the garments that are stained with sin, and be washed in the blood of the Lamb. There's a fountain flowing for the soul unclean. Oh, be washed in the blood of the Lamb. Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Brother Dwayne, want to make some closing prayer?
Father God in heaven, we thank you for allowing us to be here this evening.